Hello, this is our Voice Stories channel. My girlfriend filed a restraining order, claiming I was emotionally abusive simply because I questioned her spending habits. I didn't fight it. Instead, I quietly shut down every joint financial tie we had. I closed the accounts, canceled the lease I'd guaranteed, and let her lawyer be the one to discover what that truly meant. 72 hours later, the same lawyer was calling me, practically begging to negotiate. I'm 31, male, and that Thursday afternoon, I was served with a restraining order right at work. The receptionist at the front desk called me down, her tone uneasy. When I arrived, a process server stood waiting, his expression flat, almost bored. He handed me a thick envelope. Documents from my girlfriend of 3 years, Tessa, age 28. Inside, I found an emergency protective order. It alleged that I was both emotionally and financially abusive. Her so-called proof? Text messages in which I'd asked why she spent $1,800 at an upscale boutique just days after claiming she was broke, and an email where I'd suggested we start budgeting together. According to her statement, my text, "Didn't you say you couldn't cover your car payment?" sent after I'd seen her in new designer boots, was apparently controlling and manipulative. Her written declaration read like something from a bad drama. He monitors every purchase I make and interrogates me about money constantly, creating a toxic environment where I fear his reactions. The reality couldn't have been further from her story. Tessa had 4 credit cards in her own name, but I was the one making every payment. Her apartment lease listed me as a guarantor because her credit score was abysmal. Her car insurance was part of my policy. For 2 years, I'd been covering her so-called temporary expenses. Yet the moment I asked one reasonable question about an $1,800 shopping spree, I became an abuser. The order was crystal clear. I was to stay 100 yards away and maintain zero contact, directly or indirectly, effective immediately. I didn't call, text, or plead. I just went back upstairs to my office, shut the door, opened my banking apps, and started cutting ties. Within 60 minutes, I had canceled all 4 of her credit cards. They were legally hers, yes, but since I was the one paying them, I had every right to stop. Then, I removed her as an authorized driver from my car insurance. I contacted her apartment complex to withdraw as a lease guarantor. The property manager confirmed it required a 30-day notice, which I submitted on the spot. I canceled the Ogerodatic transfers I'd set up for her rent and bills. I changed the passwords for Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime, and Paramount Plus. Even her phone was still on my family plan, so I removed that too, effective the next billing cycle. The apartment situation was the most interesting. I wasn't listed as a tenant, just the guarantor. The property manager, Denise, turned out to be surprisingly understanding. "If you're withdrawing," she told me, "she'll need to qualify on her own or find another guarantor within 30 days. And if she can't?" I asked. "Then she'll need to vacate or face eviction." Perfect. I saved every confirmation email to my personal account, documenting the timeline. Then I went back to work and even nailed a 3 p.m. client presentation. When I finally got home that night, my phone stayed eerily silent. The restraining order worked both ways. She couldn't contact me, either. Update 1, Saturday, 8 a.m. My phone buzzed with a call from an unfamiliar number. It was a lawyer, Evan Grant. "Mr. Lawson," he began smoothly. "I represent Ms. Tessa Monroe. There appears to be a misunderstanding regarding the protective order." "A misunderstanding?" I repeated. The order seemed perfectly clear. No contact. "Yes, well," he hesitated. "My client has encountered complications. Several of her financial accounts have been closed." "I stopped making voluntary payments," I said calmly. "Yes, but she depended on those payments." "Then perhaps," I said, "she should have thought that through before filing a legal document accusing me of abuse for questioning those same payments." There was a long pause. "Mr. Lawson," he said eventually, "surely we can reach an arrangement. My client is willing to amend the order to allow communication regarding finances." "No need," I replied. "I'm fully complying. No contact means no contact, including financial support." "But what about the lease?" he pressed. "I've already submitted proper notice to withdraw as guarantor. That's between me and the property management, not her." "This feels retaliatory," he muttered. This, I said evenly, is compliance. She said my financial involvement was abusive. I'm removing myself from the abuse. He mumbled something about bad faith and financial coercion. Daniel, I said, your client filed a legal document calling me abusive. I'm respecting her boundaries. Enjoy your weekend. Then I hung up. 20 minutes later, I started getting texts from her friends, walls of angry messages, calling me names and demanding I be a man and fix this. I didn't even open them. I just took screenshots and sent them to my lawyer, since any contact from her social circle counted as indirect communication. Violating a restraining order works both ways. Update 2, Monday morning chaos. First, an email from Daniel, a formal demand letter, insisting I resume financial support during this transitional period. My reply was brief. Per the restraining order, I cannot maintain any form of contact or relationship with Ms. Pierce. Financial support would constitute a relationship. Please advise your client that I remain in full compliance. Then came the social media fireworks. Not the usual public meltdown, more like a PR disaster. Tessa's best friend, Brooke, posted on Instagram. When toxic men use money to control women after being called out for abuse, classic financial manipulation. But Brooke made a crucial mistake. She posted screenshots of Tessa's texts. He canceled everything. I can't even watch Hulu. I told you the restraining order would make him notice, but now he won't pay my cards. The lawyer says he's not legally obligated. This backfired. Someone sent me the screenshots. I forwarded them straight to my attorney, whom I'd officially retained that Saturday. The real entertainment came 2 days later. Denise from the apartment complex called again. Mr. Lawson, she said carefully, I'm required to inform you that Ms. Pierce hasn't provided alternative qualifications or a new guarantor yet. I smiled. Please confirm that my guarantee ends as scheduled. It will, she said, pausing. But she came in with her mother today. There was an incident. Oh? I asked, already expecting some chaos. Denise hesitated before continuing. Her mother, Mrs. Monroe, tried to forge your signature on a renewal form for the guarantee. Fortunately, we have surveillance cameras and your original signature on file. It was clearly a forgery. We've turned the matter over to our legal team and the local police. I blinked, stunned but not exactly surprised. Wow, was all I managed to say. Update 3. Tessa's mother, Diane, decided to reach out to me, via LinkedIn of all places. She must have thought a professional network wasn't covered by the restraining order. Her message read, Colin, this is absurd. You and Tessa had a small disagreement, and now you're destroying her life. Step up and fix this. I didn't respond, just took a screenshot and forwarded it to my attorney, Nathan. Not the same lawyer from any previous situation, but an absolute shark. He was thrilled. She filed a baseless restraining order. Her own texts prove it was manipulative, her mother's committing forgery, and now they're harassing you through third parties? We could easily countersue. Let's hold off, I said. I want to see where this goes. By Wednesday, things escalated even more. Tessa's car was repossessed, not because of me, but because she hadn't made a single payment in 4 months. She'd been using my money to cover those installments while buying designer nonsense. Once my transfers stopped, reality came knocking. Brooke took to social media again, posting, now he's even taking her car. This is abuse. But someone commented, wait, if he's taking her car, doesn't that mean he was paying for it? How does not paying someone else's bills count as abuse? Within minutes, Brooke deleted the post. By Thursday, Tessa's credit cards began getting declined. Turns out she'd maxed them all out within 3 days, panic shopping under the delusion that I'd cave like before. Then Daniel called again. His voice sounded strained. Mr. Lawson, my client is willing to drop the restraining order. I don't consent to that, I said. What? The order exists to protect her, right? I wouldn't want her to feel unsafe. You could agree to a mutual dissolution, he offered. Nah, I said calmly. I've adjusted my life to comply with it. No need for changes. But she'll be evicted. That's unfortunate, I replied. But I can't be involved in her housing. That would violate the order. He hung up without another word. Update 4. The forgery case officially became a criminal charge. Valerie Pierce was arrested at her Pilates class, no less. The police report, now public record, revealed she had tried forging my signature on several documents, not just the lease renewal. She'd even attempted to add herself to my car insurance as guardian for her 28-year-old daughter, and tried opening a credit card in my name. That last one elevated the case to identity theft. Tessa swore she had no idea about her mother's actions, but subpoenaed messages told another story. Mom, just sign it. He won't notice. His signature's simple. I've seen it tons of times. If you do the insurance, I can get my car back. After that, Daniel immediately withdrew from representing her. Being linked to potential identity theft conversations crossed an ethical line he clearly didn't want to touch. Her new lawyer, some shady guy named Jared, sent me a formal demand letter for emergency financial assistance, citing her dire living conditions. Nathan's response was magnificent. Our client notes that requesting financial support from someone Ms. Pierce claims is abusive would endanger her well-being. We cannot, in good faith, facilitate such a dangerous arrangement. Meanwhile, my own life was improving by the day. With all that extra cash I used to funnel into Tessa's expenses, I enrolled in a baking class. I even posted a few photos of my first sourdough loaf on Instagram. Nothing petty, just wholesome, flour-covered peace. That's when her friend Lauren decided to DM me. You're really letting her end up homeless over a stupid argument? I replied, I'm respecting her legal boundaries. Would you rather I violate a court order? She blocked me immediately. Update 5. Things took a turn from dramatic to downright absurd. Tessa started a crowdfunding campaign titled, Help a Survivor of Financial Abuse Rebuild Her Life. The story she posted was Oscar-worthy. How her evil, controlling ex-boyfriend had cut her off financially after she bravely stood up to his manipulation. She wrote that she needed funds for housing, transportation, and basic survival. In 3 days, she raised a grand total of $73. Then someone, not me though I silently thanked them, dropped a series of screenshots in the comments. Her Instagram posts from the last year showing luxury handbags, spa getaways, designer shoes, and captions like grateful for a man who treats me right and when he surprises you with Gucci. The campaign was flagged and shut down for fraud within hours. The best twist came next. Tessa's father, Peter Pierce, divorced from Diane for over a decade, reached out to me. Colin, it's Richard, Tessa's dad. I've heard about everything that's happened. Mr. Monroe, I said, I can't discuss the case. I'm not calling for that. I just wanted to apologize. I know my daughter and her mother. I've lived through this before. The restraining order, the false accusations, the financial manipulation. It's like deja vu. Diane pulled the same stunts during our divorce. Filed false claims, forged my name, tried to get me arrested. You're doing the right thing. Don't give in. They'll push until you refuse to bend. Then they'll move on. He was absolutely right about the escalation. Update 6. The eviction date loomed closer, and desperation made Tessa reckless. She reached out to my mother. My mom, Elena, doesn't tolerate nonsense. According to her retelling, the call went like this. Tessa, why are you contacting me? Mrs. Carter, I just want to talk to Colin. This is all a misunderstanding. You filed a restraining order claiming my son abused you. My mom replied flatly. That's not a misunderstanding. I didn't mean it. So you lied under oath? It was just complicated. My son paying your bills was controlling, right? Tessa hung up. My mom called me afterward, laughing. That girl's something else, Mijo. You dodged a missile. But Tessa wasn't done. She kept escalating. On day 24, she actually showed up at my office, despite the restraining order. I had already informed building security of the situation, so they stopped her at the entrance. According to the guards, she started crying hysterically, yelling that I was ruining her life, and that she just needed to talk. Security called the police. Tessa was arrested for violating her own restraining order. The irony was almost poetic. She spent the night in jail. Her mother, Diane, bailed her out, and then, unbelievably, decided to hold a press conference outside the courthouse the next day. 3 local reporters showed up, clearly expecting a slow news morning. Diane stood there, waving papers, ranting about financial abuse, and men weaponizing money to control women. One reporter interrupted her mid-rant. Ma'am, he said, Aren't you currently under indictment for identity theft and forgery? That's irrelevant, she snapped. Didn't you forge this man's signature to steal from him? He continued. How is that not financial abuse? I was protecting my daughter, Diane blurted. Even if it meant breaking the law. The so-called press conference ended right there. The footage didn't make it onto TV, but it quickly went mildly viral online, shared among legal circles as the perfect example of how not to handle public relations during a criminal investigation. Later that week, Denise from the apartment complex called again. Mr. Lawson, just keeping you informed. Ms. Pierce was officially evicted this morning. She has 48 hours to vacate. Did she find a new place? I asked, though mostly out of curiosity. She applied to several, Denise said, but everyone rejected her after running credit and background checks. The arrest didn't help. I felt a flicker of sympathy, but then I remembered that she'd once stood in court and called me emotionally abusive for asking about a shopping spree. That sympathy vanished fast. Final update. The end was almost anticlimactic. Tessa moved back in with Diane, who was out on bail, into a cramped one-bedroom apartment in a sketchy neighborhood. A far cry from the luxury complex I'd been guaranteeing. The restraining order remains in full effect. Tessa actually tried to have it dismissed, but the judge reviewed her prior violation and decided to keep it active for mutual protection. Her latest lawyer, Jared, made one last attempt at negotiation. Mr. Lawson, he began. Ms. Pierce is willing to sign a statement admitting that her abuse claims were exaggerated, if you agree to provide 6 months of financial support for her rehabilitation. Rehabilitation from what? I asked. He cleared his throat. Financial adjustment distress. I couldn't help but laugh. You just made that up. She's not in distress. She's just experiencing consequences. This is cruel, he said quietly. No, I corrected. This is accountability. He didn't respond. A few weeks later, I ran into Brooke at the grocery store. She spotted me first and tried to duck into another aisle, but I called out to her. How's Tessa doing? I asked, genuinely curious. Brooke looked uncomfortable. She's working retail, living with her mom. Good for her, I said. She really cared about you, you know? She just got scared. Scared of what? Of being questioned about her spending, I said. Scared enough to file false abuse claims. That was Diane's idea, wasn't it? Brooke sighed. Yeah. Diane told her it would make you realize how serious she was about needing space. Space from my questions, not my money, I said dryly. Brooke winced. It sounds bad when you say it like that. How else would you say it? I asked. She didn't have an answer. Not long after, I heard through mutual friends that Diane pled guilty to forgery and identity theft. She got probation and community service. Tessa's credit score cratered to 420. She's still working in retail, still living with Diane, and already has a new boyfriend, some guy named Ryan. Apparently, she's already started asking him for financial help. Her father, Richard, reached out again. Heard you stood your ground, he said. Good job. She's already on to the next one. Poor guy doesn't know what's coming. As for me, I redirected the $3,500 a month I'd been spending on her toward my future. Boosted my retirement savings, started an investment portfolio, bought a high-end coffee maker, and kept taking my baking classes. I even had extra money left over. Now, the restraining order that was meant to punish me has become my favorite ironic souvenir. She filed it to manipulate me, but it ended up giving me the perfect excuse to sever every tie, guilt-free and legally clean. No drawn-out arguments, no emotional games, just instant peace delivered by court order. To anyone who finds themselves in a similar trap, when someone shows you who they truly are, especially through official paperwork, believe them. Don't rescue them from the consequences they've chosen. Don't let guilt override logic. If someone uses a restraining order to control you, comply enthusiastically. Give them the distance they asked for, not just miles but galaxies. Sometimes, the best way to counter manipulation isn't confrontation. It's radical, lawful detachment. Tessa wanted me gone, but my money to stay. The restraining order made that impossible. She outplayed herself, trapped by her own paperwork. Cool. V.S. To the 3 strangers who messaged me saying I was abusive for cutting her off. She filed legal documents declaring that my financial help was abuse. I simply agreed and stopped. If that's still abuse, then I guess logic has left the building. P.S. Yes, everything I did was perfectly legal. No, stopping voluntary payments isn't a crime. And no, refusing to be someone's personal ATM doesn't make you an abuser. It just means you finally learned the cost of peace. Goodbye.